prophecy ere turned. Corion's ward hath come. Crossroad of past, present, and future. The one foreseen, the one foretold.
Baldur's Gate 2 Throne of Bhaal is the official expansion to Baldur's Gate 2, which was released last year, and typically considered the best RPG of that year and one of the best computer role-playing games to date. So that game in turn was the sequel to Baldur's Gate, which was released in 1998, and many say that it single-handedly sort of restored the role-playing genre on the PC because it was really successful in how it blended interesting combat and a lot of really pure role-playing elements and just a big epic story all into one game, and it was a big success at retail, and inspired these sequels and expansion packs. So Throne of Bhaal has a lot to live up to because of these other games, which have repeatedly surprised people at how big and detailed they are. And among other things, Throne of Bhaal is billed as the final chapter in the Baldur's Gate saga, meaning the entire storyline is going to draw to a close at the end of Throne of Bhaal. So, seeing as how it's billed as the last game in the series, there's a lot of pressure on the designers to really outdo themselves once again. And the good news is that once again they have outdone themselves. It really turns out to be a very worthwhile, very interesting, and very enjoyable game, much like its predecessors, and yet much like its predecessors, it does a lot of new things, and will pack in a whole lot of surprises and a whole lot of interesting scenes, even for those players who think they've seen everything by now. Like all the other games, of course, the Throne of Bhaal is set in the Forgotten Realms universe of Dungeons and Dragons, which is a high fantasy setting with dragons and in this case demons and stuff like that. The game lets you import your characters directly from Baldur's Gate 2. You need Baldur's Gate 2 installed in order to play Throne of Bhaal. The game begins shortly after Baldur's Gate 2 concludes. So you've learned that you're the son or daughter, depending on your character, of Bhaal, better known as the Lord of Murder. And you've also learned that you're not the only child that this evil god has given birth to, but in fact there are many siblings that you've learned that you have, popularly known as the Bhaal spawn, and for some reason all of these different Bhaal spawn are coming out of the woodwork and seem to be attacking each other and fighting each other in some kind of effort to gain the ultimate power of their dead father, the Lord of Murder.
5 powerful Bhaal spawn have arisen, leading their armies across the Sword Coast, slaughtering their weaker siblings and innocents alike in a wave of massive destruction.
So you're promptly cast into the middle of this when you know, one of your siblings basically tries to assassinate you. So so you set in motion the events that will culminate in your attaining a godlike status and approaching the level of power that this Lord of Murder once had. So once again, like in Baldur's Gate 2, Throne of Bhaal has a really epic scope. You really get a great sense of the fact that your character is legendary. Everyone who approaches you is, you know, either fearful of you or really hateful toward you or really respectful toward you, and you really feel like you've had a significant impact on the world of the game, and a lot of the characters you meet will be really quick to point it out. A lot of the game revolves around your encounters with these other siblings of yours, and most of these encounters end violently one way or another, as you have to fight them. These are some of the biggest, most spectacular battles in any Baldur's Gate game. There's all kinds of magic being fired off. Your characters have grown to incredibly powerful levels of experience, and you have access to all kinds of new high-level skills, a new feature introduced in Throne of Bhaal. For instance, fighters can gain a whirlwind attack that basically increases their rate of attack twofold at least, and lets them just unleash a barrage of hits onto everything around them. And mages get access to high-level spells like Dragon's Breath and Comet and really powerful things like that. You know, that's the good news, and the bad news is that you're definitely going to need it. The game is quite tough. You'll face some really difficult encounters, and they really rather get more difficult as the game progresses. Fortunately, you can prepare yourself pretty well because your characters will be so tough that you can lay all kinds of magical defenses on your team and whatnot. But in the end, the combat in Throne of Bhaal is one of the best things about it, and it just requires a lot of strategy and tactics, and it's fun to watch and fun to play. On the role-playing side of the game, there's some great production values in Throne of Bhaal. A lot of the characters speak in full speech. They speak all their dialogue, and the dialogue is really well done.
I live, flesh and blood and bone. I am alive. I scratch and scratch and crawl my way back into the world of the living, and I have done it.
Throne of Bhaal is relatively shorter than Baldur's Gate 2, which was a massive game. Throne of Bhaal will take you about 30 hours on average to complete. It might take you more than that, and as with Baldur's Gate 2, there's plenty of good reason to replay it. The game actually contains two main parts. The first is a high-level dungeon called Watcher's Keep, which is the home of a mysterious being called the Imprisoned One, and you eventually will find out what and who the Imprisoned One is. And the Dungeons & Dragons fans will be pretty pleased with the results of that. Watcher's Keep has a lot of other really interesting surprises in it. BioWare, the developers, set out to make Watcher's Keep the single most interesting dungeon they've ever made, and they've certainly succeeded. The rest of the game consists of the actual main story branch. It adds chapters 8, 9, and 10 onto the end of Baldur's Gate 2, and these are the chapters that chronicle your battles with these other Bhaal spawn, leading up to a final confrontation, which is it certainly promises to be one of the toughest fights you've ever faced in a Baldur's Gate game. All in all, the expansion is sort of a must-have for anyone who's enjoyed any of the Baldur's Gate games. You know, if only because it concludes the story and lets you know sort of what happens in the end. You know, the real question is the outcome of all this satisfying, and the good news is that it certainly is. And you know, once again, as with Baldur's Gate 2, the developers at BioWare have really put a remarkable amount of effort into their latest game, and it really shines through, and the results will be really satisfying to fans of the series, much less anyone who likes role-playing games on the computer.
The storm approaches. We speak no more.